Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how to install Prowlarr, which is an indexer for torrent sites. And basically what this allows you to do is it's a web-based application that will search multiple torrent sites at once and allow you to download from them to your torrent client without visiting the sites. The advantage of this is you don't have to visit multiple torrent sites. You can actually use Prowlarr to unblock torrent sites. It's safer because a lot of torrent sites have malicious adverts, with nastiness, BitTorrent miners, that sort of thing. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing this using the Arch Linux AUR using Distrobox on Fedora. You can do this on any version of Linux. And the reason we're going to be using Distrobox to install this it's because if you come across the install instructions, Linux, what you'll find is you actually have to manually download and build this, which is a bit of a pain. It's doable, but there's a bit of pain. Whereas the Arch Linux AUR actually has a version of Prowlarr that you can install. So what we're going to be doing is using Distrobox, which is a extension of Podman and Docker that is more tightly integrated with your host system. And this is important because, for example, if you're using Podman on Fedora, which runs SE Linux, you can have issues with accessing your home directory. So what we're going to be doing is using Distrobox to install Arch Linux and the Arch Linux AUR on our system, and then be able to run Prowlarr from the host while everything's installed in the container. Okay, let me show you. So I'm going to come across here and I'm going to run Prowlarr. Okay, and you can see here it's actually started up the container and it started up Prowlarr. What I'm going to do is come across here and you can see this is Prowlarr. Now, the way that this works is what you do is you add what are called indexers, and these are sites that you want to search, and these can either be torrent sites or usenet sites. So what you do is the first time you actually set this up, you've actually got to set up a username and password for that, but I'll show you that when we get to that section and actually installing this. So what you do is you add a indexer. Now, one thing to note is a lot of these indexers may be blocked, so what I'll show you here is how you can get around that. So first of all, you click Add Indexers, and you select Protocol, Torrent, and you come across to Privacy, Public. So this is just showing all the public torrent sites. And as you can see here, someone got a green check mark that that I've already added. So if I, for example, click 1337X, you see this is enabled. Now each of these indexer little pop-up pages is different for each site. So what you'll see here is enabled, and what we have here is this section called base URL. Now this is interesting because what it allows you to do is select a different domain to actually search the torrent site for. So if a torrent site is blocked for you, you can actually select to use a different domain here to actually unblock the site. Once you've done that, you click Test. You should get a little green check mark. Once you've done that, you click Save. You go through and you add all the torrent sites that you actually want. You can see we've got a long list of different stuff. So that's how you add the torrent site. The next step is you come across to your settings, download clients. See, I've already got one added here, and we click this big plus button. And then we come down to torrents, and these are all the supported torrent clients. And what you simply do is you come across and you select one. And for example, on transmission, what I've done is I have transmission set up with the web UI, which uses a JSON interface. And you sort of set up transmission with a web UI and a username and password, and you put that into that section. Once you've done that, you can come across to this search section down here and enter a query select the indexer you want to use, and optionally the categories to search. So what I'm going to do is actually search for Night of the Living Dead from 1968, which is in the public domain. And let me just make sure I've got transmission open here. I've got transmission open. So what I'm going to do is Night of the Living Dead 1968, oh, not 58, 68. And this was, there was a problem when they released Night of the Living Dead in 1968. They didn't put a copyright on it. They didn't follow the copyright procedure properly or something. So it was always in the public domain. So that's why they remade Night of the Living Dead in 1990, which has actually got a slightly different ending, so that they could actually make some money off it because of, I think it was the distributor or something. There was some issue with the copyright. So Night of the Living Dead was never copyrighted. So what we're going to do is come across here and go indexes, and we're going to select Internet Archive. We're going to click search. Okay, so what you see here is we've actually got a list of things here. So let me explain the interface. You can see here, if I hover over these links, what we're actually getting down at the bottom left here is the actual web page. So if I click that, it's actually going to take you to the web page. And this is useful because then you could read the comments, oh, the quality sucks, the audio's off, that kind of thing. So this is the web page with a torrent on it. Again, in the public domain, no issues. So all we do is there are two ways you can do this. You can come and click the little button down here, and that's basically going to download it. Or you can select multiple things to download. So I could select multiple torrents to download at once. So you don't have to do it all manually. This is a great advantage. You can come through and just click loads of stuff at once. So once you've got this selected, just click grab release. Come across here, bang, Night of the Living Dead. Now the nice thing about archive.org is the download speeds are really good. You can see typically I get a download speed of just over 1 meg. On archive.org I'm getting a 2 meg download. And the other advantage is because the videos have actually been uploaded to archive.org, they're using what's called a web seed. And what this means is that the torrent is always available because it's actually online. So they're actually linking to the online version of the torrent. Okay, so that's the gist of how Prowlarr works. So let's go through and actually get this set up. So what I'm going to do is actually stop Prowlarr. I'm going to Control C to kill it. And what I'm going to do is Distrobox stop Arch. So that's the name of the container. Okay. So what do we need to do to actually get this set up? We need to actually install Distrobox. Before we install Distrobox, what we need to do is actually install Podman. So Podman is an alternative to Docker. Now the issue with Docker is that it runs as a daemon, as root all the time, whereas Podman runs as your own user, so it's a lot safer basically. Now on Fedora 38, which I'm running, Podman is pre-installed. That might not be the case on your distribution, so what you need to do is come across Podman, have a look about how to get this set up. Okay, and then come across, once you've got Podman installed, what you need to do is come across and install Distrobox. So if you're lucky, they'll be in your repository, otherwise you're going to need to install them manually. So what we're going to do is move on to the next step of actually how you get this set up. So we've got Distrobox and Podman installed. So what we need to do is now actually create the container. So the way that we do this is by running Distrobox create -n and then the name we want to give to the container, -i and then the image that we want to use. And the image we want to use, if I come across down here, container distros. So this is a list of all the distributions that we can actually run on Distrobox, and what we're going to be doing is actually using Arch Linux. And there's two kind of versions. There's ones called Toolbox, and then there's just regular ones. I think ones called Toolbox are maybe sort of slightly pre-configured to work with your desktop or whatever. But what I've done is actually gone the hardcore route, and we're going to set this up from scratch using Arch Linux. So what we're going to be doing is using Arch Linux latest. So what we do is we run Distrobox create, give it the name, and then Arch Linux latest. And what I'm going to do is actually call this Arch 2. So we're going to call this Arch 2 and -i Arch Linux latest. Okay, and you can see here that was pretty quick. But what we need to do now is we need to enter the container, and when we enter the container, it's actually going to download and build Arch Linux, which actually takes a few minutes. So we enter the container. So as you can see here, after I've run this command here, it says to enter, run Distrobox, enter Arch 2. Okay, Distrobox, enter Arch 2. And what you'll see here, this is going to take a couple of minutes. What it's doing now is actually installing the basic packages. So it's actually pulling down everything from Arch, basically, to install a base Arch system. So we're going to leave that running here. And I just wanted to show you this in real time. Show you how long it takes rather than speeding up a video or cutting that bit out. So after we've done this step, we've entered the container. What we're actually going to do is we're going to update the system. We have to set the locale. Then what we're going to do is actually install Yay, which is an Arch Linux AUR helper, which will make it easier to install the Prowlarr version on the AUR. So you can see here we've got Prowlarr on the AUR, and the other distribution that I know that actually has a Prowlarr package is NixOS, which I was using a while ago, but I got fed up with because it's a bit of a walled garden. If the package isn't on the AUR in Nix, you're screwed basically. You have to learn Nix and how to make your own package. So the advantage of this setup using Distrobox here is that what we can do is we can run Distrobox on any distribution that supports Podman. And what this means is that you could be running something like Ubuntu 22.04, for example. You can then install any of these containers on your host, which will allow you to install packages from that distribution. So you can be running Ubuntu or Fedora and actually install Arch Linux and install the applications from Arch Linux and have them show up in your system. What you can actually do is you can actually export the binaries from the container onto your host so that you can actually run them, as I showed you downloading Night of the Living Dead. So you can see here this takes a while. Okay, it's done now. Now you can see here I'm actually getting these errors about ZSH. The reason for this is because, let me show you something bonkers. CD desktop. Okay. This is the desktop on my system. Touch test. Okay. You can see we've got a test file here. You can see we've got my username at the name of the container and then my host. Now if I switch across here, you see this is my host system. List test. You can see I've just created a file in the container that shows up on my system. If I remove test on my host and switch back here, you'll see it's now gone. So that's the integration that I was talking about. So we got this set up. So what we need to do is update the repos. We're going to run sudo pacman syy. And you can see it's pulling stuff down from Arch. Isn't that cool? We're on Fedora, but we're on Arch. Okay, get your head around that. So we've updated that. What we want to do next is we're going to install VI, and the reason for this is you can install any editor you want. It could be Nano, whatever, because we need to edit our locale. So we're going to run sudo pacman svi. Yeah, I want to install this. Okay, so now we've got VI installed. So what we need to do is actually edit our etc locale.gen. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to add these two bits here. We're going to add our locale. So we're adding c.utf-8, utf-8, and then this section here is what you're going to need to change for your locale, basically. So I'm in good old Blighty GB. That's engb.utf utf-8. So I'm just going to actually add these here. So remember c.utf-8 utf-8, and then engb en_capital db .utf-8. Is it utf-8 again? Yep. utf-8, not 7. Okay, hang on. utf-8, escape, and write that out. WQ. Okay. So we've edited that file. What we need to do, right, we need to edit the locale.gen and also the locale.conf. So next step is editing locale.conf. Sudo vi etc locale.conf. You can see here we've already got lang c utf. What we need to do is actually put these bits in. We want lc create. I've got this from another video which I'll actually link to. So lc create equals c.utf. Okay, escape, new line, lang equals engb.utf-8. The next one, yeah, utf-8 again. utf-8, escape, write it out. Okay. We need to now generate the locale file. So we'll run sudo locale gen. This is just stuff you usually have to go through when actually setting up Arch Linux. So that's done. Check the locale, locale-a. Got all that set up. Okay, so we need to activate the locale. We can do that by running source etc profile. And don't worry, I'll put the link to this documentation under the video so you can actually go through and copy this across. We need to generate the pacman key next. Sudo pacman key -- init. Okay. And then we run sudo pacman -syy. Okay, we're getting there. We're cracking on. So, yay. This is the Arch Linux AUR helper. And what we need to do is install some dependencies first of all. We need to install base devel and git. we run sudo pacman -s --needed base-devel git. And the other nice thing here is, as you can see, I can just copy and paste stuff across. And that's going to download here. We've got the parallel downloads going through, which is a nice feature of the pacman, what do you call it? Like apt and DNF. Mine's gone blank, thing to install shit, basically. So it's going through and it's going to take a little while to download all the requirements. You can see here the total, how many it's sort of processing. So once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch to the desktop and we're going to clone the Yay repository to our host desktop. So this is the thing you got to get your head around. It's so tightly integrated that everything on your host system in your home is accessible. So be careful if you're in the container. If you remove something from the desktop, you're removing it from the host. Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is go through the steps of actually downloading and setting up Yay, and then we're going to install Prowlarr. And what I'm going to do is show you how you set up Prowlarr and integrate it with your torrent client. So this is still chundering away, 28 of 29, so this should be done in a second. Okay, you can see here it's checking everything. Right. So now we're already on the desktop, so we're on the desktop. Yeah, pwd. You can see here I'm on my desktop, but I'm in the container. So we're going to clone the repository. Git clone and the path to Yay. And you can see here we've got Yay there. See, this is the container. This is my host. So you can see it's on the actual desktop on the host. We're going to cd Yay, and we've got the pkg build file in there. So we've changed directory into Yay. Now we're going to build Yay by running make pkg-si. Do you want to do that? Yep. The advantage of this is that you can also export a binary from the container into your host and run it from your host without having to start the container, without having to mess with the container, just like you would anything else. You can also install graphical applications and export those so that they show up in your application launcher, and you can run them just as you would any other application, but it's in a container. And the advantage of that is that quite frequently you'll get a mismatch between the dependencies on your host for doing something requires this version of that and this version of that, and it can be a pain to set stuff up. So click Y here, and that's all done. So we've got Yay installed. What we need to do is actually, these steps aren't actually needed. These steps here are for if you actually already installed stuff using Yay, install stuff using Git or whatever. It kind of converts them to be picked up by Yay. So we can just skip this step. We don't need this. So what we're going to do now is install Prowlarr. So we just run Yay-S Prowlarr, and that is the name of the package on the Arch user repository. So Yay-S Prowlarr. Okay, in this section here is just showing you there's only one package listed. Okay, so we can just press 1 or all, whatever. Press 1. Do you want to install this? Yeah. And what I'm going to do is actually show you how you can export this. So we've got we've got to set up Prowlarr, and we've got to do the authenticate. We've got to export it. I think I may have these in the wrong order. So switch those round. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to export the path to the Prowlarr binary on the container into a location on our host. Let's just see, this is chundering away here. Got another minute or so left or something. So what I'm going to do here is actually come across to my local bin, and what you see is I've got Prowlarr in here, and if I less Prowlarr, what you'll see is actually a script. You can see here it's saying if container ID, then execute Arch, and then Prowlarr. If not, execute this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this to my desktop, so that when I run this step again here, and export the press Y here. Okay, so we've done that. So what we're going to do now is actually export this binary. Okay. And what we're going to do after that is we're going to add this local bin directory to our shell path as well. So Distrobox, and this needs to be these export commands need to be run while you're actually inside the container. So you can see here I'm in the container. Okay, Prowlarr exported into local bin. If I come across here, you'll see Prowlarr, less Prowlarr. And what you'll see here is execute Distrobox name Arch2. Okay. So we got that set up. We got Prowlarr set up. So what I can now do is run Prowlarr. So I can actually run. I'm on the host here. So I'm going to run Prowlarr. It's in my path. So Prowlarr, bastard. Prowlarr. Okay. So if I now open Prowlarr here, is this opening? This is opening the one I've already got. Ah, sod's law. Okay, what seems to have happened is that I think it's picking up the previous container I set up. So let me just stop this. Distrobox list. Yeah, is Arch2 running? Distrobox stop Arch, is that running? Yeah. Okay, so what I'm thinking is it may have either picked up the previous container, because I didn't source my, let me see if I source my ZSH EMV and try running that directory, running the Prowlarr doodad. Let me see if this works. So what it may be doing is it may be either picking up the previous container or the config file. So let me just try this again. Okay, and let me launch that and see if it's still okay. Right. So yeah, what it's doing now is I think it's picking up the config from the previous setup, I guess. There's always going to be some flipping doodad. So let me just log in. Now, the other thing is, if I can't get, if I'm just going to have some difficulty showing you this, is first time you actually run Prowlarr, what's going to come up is a little box saying you've got to set authentication, and it's going to give you 3 options, and it will default to none, and you can't use none. You have to specify a authentication type, and what it's going to give you is 2 options. It's going to give you browser pop-up or login form. The browser pop-up is when you visit a site and you get this kind of like little pop-up here on the window, and you've got to put in username and password. You don't want to select that. You want to select login form. Okay. Okay, so this is interesting. So why is this not coming up? It's not letting me put the password in that I set for the previous one. So let me just check this. Okay, this is really weird. So there's obviously some kind of conflict because I've set up a new container. Okay, right. So I'm just going to quit that. I'm Prowlarr. Move the one back from the desktop. Okay, so there was an issue. Actually, I'm sort of showing you that. So let me just source my ZSH.env file and run Prowlarr again. Okay, now that's starting up the correct thing, and now it's locked me out. Oh, for God's sake! Sod's law. Okay. Right. So there's some weird issue now that I can't get into it because I ran. I don't know. Because I sort of set up a second container. So where does this stuff actually get saved? So there's no in .config. There's no Prowlarr directory. So I'm just wondering where this where it's picking up this config from. Is it in containers? I think there's a maybe it's in podman. I think in local. Containers. Was it in cache? Cache containers. No, that's the short name references. I'm just seeing if there's any directory where this actually gets stored. And why this is giving me an issue now. So what I was going to say is that as I figure out what the problem with this is, you want to set the the authentication type to login form, and the reason for that is because that will allow you to save the username and password. Well, not save the username and password, but you can actually come into the settings for Firefox down here, privacy and security, and what you can do is you can actually set Firefox to clear all site data and cookies except a couple of sites. And what you can do is you can actually put in the URL here as an exception, you see down here, and what that will do is it will get Firefox to not clear the cookies for Prowlarr, so that when you open it, it should be logged in. But for some reason, I've now mangled the Prowlarr install. So let me see if I can get this working again now. Okay, so we got an authentication failure there. I'm just wondering what the issue that I've triggered is. To actually break this during a demo. What I was thinking is, are there config files for Prowlarr that are in the host, because what happens is it will actually pick up the configuration files for applications that are installed on the host, which is why I was getting those ZSH errors, because it was picking up the ZSH config file from my host. Okay, so why is this now bust? So let's have a look. Let's come out of this container. We'll exit the container, Distrobox, list, and let's just make sure these are both stops. Distrobox stop arch, stop arch 2. Okay. So what should happen? I'll list that Prowlarr file. Is when I run this Prowlarr script on the host, what it's going to do is execute these commands, and it will actually start up the container if it's not started. So let's see. I just need to clear the browser or something. So let me just see off camera. I can copy the password across. I'm not sure why this is now broken. So that's kind of a bit of an issue, isn't it? Managing to break this. I'm just wondering why it's not accepting the username and password. That's really weird and very, very annoying. So maybe this is a lesson not to set up two things of the same type, in case they clash. Let's have a search. Config files. See if we can find out what saves everything. Let's have a look on usually. No. So there's no Arch Wiki page config file location. Where does this stuff get bloody saved? There's got to be a location that is actually let's have a look. I'm just wondering if it's created something like a .prowlarr file or something. Normally it'd be like config local. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I've managed to bugger this up, but I have. Let me just pause this a second and okay, so I figured out what I did wrong. I was putting the wrong username and password in. I was putting the password in for transmission. So what seems to be happening is I've got two containers set up with Prowlarr, but for some reason there must be it's already picking up the stuff on the previous container. So let me just stop this and see if I can get it to run afresh. All right. let's Prowlarr. Okay, so what I'm going to do is Distrobox stop arch. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is actually dot local bin Prowlarr. What I'm going to do is just change this to arch 2. So that's going to start it up in the new container. So, and let me get my username and password ready. Was it going to prompt me for that again? Okay, so arch 2. Okay. Right, yeah, and it's still coming up with the previous setup of having all the indexes ready. But the other thing I wanted to show you is that see how it automatically logged in? It didn't prompt me because I've got the cookie saved, basically. So, sorry about that slight diversion. But what I can't figure out is why it's picking up the config, and I can't figure out where the config is. Another thing you can actually do is you can specify an alternate home. So what you can do is for each container, instead of it sort of using your home directory, what you can do is you can specify a different path. And the advantage of that is it's not going to pick up your doc files and that kind of stuff. So that might be a workaround. If you read the Distrobox information, you'll actually see that you can specify a different sort of path, where you want to have it set up the home. So I'm guessing that there's for some reason it's picking up a config from the previous container and the new container. So nothing ever goes smoothly in a demo when you're doing it in real time. So what I'm going to do now is come across and show you my ZHMV. Oh, for pity's sake. Okay. So this is the section we're on now. Add the God, I'm having a coughing fit. Add the bin directory to your path. So what you want to do is, if you're on ZSH, you want to edit your ZSH env file and add local bin to your path. If you're on Bash, have a look at how you add a new element to your path. But basically, all you do is you run types in your ZSH config, like here. We've got typeset -u path, and what that does is that creates a unique path so you don't get duplicates in your path. And then we set path equal to, in my case, we've got home bin, so we've got bin directory in my home. We've got home local bin, which is where things like Python applications will get installed. And we also have user local bin as well. And what we're doing is we're actually exporting the binaries from the container into home local bin. I keep all my scripts in my bin directory, and I don't want to mix up the exported scripts from the containers with my proper script. So that's why I'm using home local bin, and we export the path. And once you've done that, and we export the path from within the container, as I showed you, you'll see that Prowlarr now shows up as a script that I can actually run from the host. Supposedly, you can also export systemd services, but I couldn't quite get that to work. I believe that Prowlarr also on the AUR has a systemd service. But I would recommend doing it the way I've shown you, because as you can see, it works. And we just basically run we run Prowlarr from the command line, and we then basically open the open the browser to 127.0.0.1:9696. So the thing that I was trying to show you that I couldn't was the authentication method. So if I come across into settings, port number, yeah. So this is what I was talking about. The authentication method, forms login page. You can see you've got none, basic browser pop-up, or forms login page. Make sure it's set to forms login page so you get the login as I showed you when I was being an idiot and putting in the transmission password instead of the password for Prowlarr. So that's what you need to do. You go through, you add your indexers. As I showed you, you click add indexer, just refresh. Remember, go to torrent, go to public, come through, select add all your indexers. So that's there's basically 3 steps. The first step, when you first launch it, you've got to set the authentication method to forms login, put in a username and password, and write it down. And remember to use that instead of the one for transmission. Then you add your indexes, and finally the only other thing you need to do is come across to the downloads client. We've got transmission here, and so what you do is that you come click plus, click transmission, and it's going to look like this. So you're going to have transmission enabled, localhost, the port, add in your username and password. Now then what you have to do is in transmission, what you do is you come across to edit, preferences, remote, and you do allow remote access 1991, user authentication. It should have you. Why is that unchecked? Should be checked. Don't know why I unchecked that. Let me just make sure that this is going to work again. That checked. The other thing that you want to do, okay, let me just come across to the desktop, netrc. What you do is you can also add torrents and magnet links on the command line to transmission. It's got a command line you know, whatchamacallit. It's got a command line as well as a web UI. Now, the issue is if you've set up authentication, you don't want to have to put in your username and password every time you try to add a torrent on the command line or in a script, for example. So what you do is you create a file called .netrc in your home directory. So it would be ~.netrc. I'm just showing you on the desktop. And what you have up here is machine, localhost, and then login, and then your username. Okay, and then password, and the password, if I move it here, you can see this is password, and then the account is the same as the password. And what this does is this netrc file is an authentication method that will work on the command line with transmission, so that you can use transmission on the command line without having to enter your username and password. So this is the format for the netrc: machine, localhost, login, username and password, and that corresponds to what you got in here, username, password. Okay, so let me just check that now I've got this set up with the authentication. This should still work. So let's search for Big Buck Bunny. Big Buck Bunny, and we're just going to search on Internet Archive search. Okay, Big Buck Bunny 78. Select there, grab releases. That should come up. Yeah, so it's still working. I don't know why I had the authentication turned off. My bad. But you can see this is coming down really fast. You can see the download speeds from archive.org. Great. Another thing with transmission is you click on properties, you can see the files, so you can actually deselect files you don't want. So right, just come through and just deselect files you don't want, like that. And what I'll also show you is if I just pause this a second. Right, what I want to show you is something else. Properties. Come back to this file section. See, there's a load of files. Let me just reselect all these. Okay. This is particularly an issue with archive.org. Is what you will find on archive.org is the torrents have multiple versions of the same video, but in different formats. So what you'll get is AVI, MP4, OGG. So what will happen is, suppose you download a series from archive.org, they will have multiple different versions of the same file. If I can find one, show you this example. Yeah, show all. Go on today. Okay, this isn't the best example at all. Let me just search. Flipping search thing. Okay, Night of the Living Dead. Okay, what you bugger. Okay, just see. I can find one with an example. Yeah, this is it. So if I show you here, you can see how you've got like an MP3, an MP4, an MPG, an OGG, PNG, MP4. It can be a bit of a pain to these manually come in and deselect these files that you don't want with transmission. Yeah, because if you've got lots of torrents, say you're downloading lots of torrents legally, of course, in the public domain from archive.org, and they have multiple versions, it's a real pain to have to come into each one of these, go to properties, files, and deselect them. So luckily what happens is I have a script that I call Black Rain. Okay, here. What this does is this is using the transmission interface. Okay, it's got like a JSON interface, as I said. It's got the web UI, but you can also access that over on the command line. So what would happen is if I have multiple torrents selected here, set up here, I would be able to arrow up and down, using the arrow keys to select a particular torrent. I could tab to select multiple torrents. Let's just do this, just to demo this for you. I'm going to download the torrent, and what I'm going to do is actually pause this. Did you not download, you bugger? Ugh, come on. Why is it not now picking up? Okay, there we go. Right, so I'm just going to pause this, and I'm going to show you. So the issue is properties, files, and you've got to come through and you've got to, deselect the ones you don't want. Let me just kill this and restart it. You can see now I've got these two torrents listed. What I can do is tab both of them, press return, and now this gives you an FZF menu. So we've selected the torrents, and what we can do is we can now run a transmission command on the selected torrent. So what we've got here is we've got start, pause, info, files, get, no get, peers, remove, purge. So start restarts them, pauses them. info will actually show you some information about the torrent, you know, how many seeders, that kind of thing. Files will show you files in the torrent. And then we've got get and no get. So get says, you know, you can say get these particular files. What we want to do is no get. We want to deselect certain things. So we'll go no get. And what you see here is we're now getting, first of all, Night of the Living Dead listed. And then once we've gone through this menu, we will get Big Buck Bunny listed. So what I can do is I can tab, and this is going to basically deselect the stuff I don't want. So we're deselecting things that we don't want. Now, as you can see, Big Buck Bunny, I'll go through and deselect these like this. Press return. You can see response success. And if I come across here and go to properties, what you'll see is we've only got that one file selected. So that's a much quicker way to deselect files from torrents than using transmission, because it's a bit of a pain if you've got multiple torrents to go through and uncheck all of these, and and especially with series, because you can actually download TV series from archive.org from like the 70s, 80s, 60s that are in the public domain. And each season, so if you've got a TV series with like 4 or 5 seasons, you'd have to go into each folder and go through and deselect each file that you don't want, and it's a real pain. So that's why so I can just do this again. I could go black rain, select both of them, and I'll say get. And what you can also do is you can basically just tab all of these, say get all of these, tab, bang, done. Come back here, properties, files. You can see they're now all reselected. So that's why you want to set up the username and password for transmission. This is the latest version of transmission. You can actually use transmission in the web UI, but unfortunately the new web UI sucks. It's really bad in my opinion. The color scheme, it looks like it's more designed for a mobile version. Don't know if I've actually got that bookmarked anywhere, what the transmission web UI is. Let's have a look. Should actually, it tells you, doesn't it, in the flipping preferences. So preferences, remote, 1991. So 1991. See, this is the browser pop-up. Okay. Let me just shift across here a second and get my username and password. Transmission. Okay, so I don't like this. I mean, you know, it's all right, but I don't know. I just prefer using the new GTK version. Find this a bit, even though it's now got a dark theme, I still find it a bit sort of clunky to use compared to. I don't think you have the. Do you have the files option yet? I'm not sure if you've got this kind of properties option in the web UI. Info, you get the info, peers, files. Yeah, you do. You get the same thing, and you can deselect everything, but I prefer just to use the this anyway. So that's why you want to get the set your remote. Okay, select the remote, HTTP, username, password, and then again set up your netrc. So this goes in your home directory, machine, localhost, username. Obviously put in the username for transmission and the password, and the account is the same as the password. And once you've done that, you will be able to use transmission on the command line, either through the transmission commands or in a script, as I showed you with the Black Rain script, that will connect to transmission and allow you to interact with all the torrents on the command line, which is a lot quicker than actually manually clicking on each one and going through and deselecting stuff. I think I can't remember if I think I set the script up to work with wildcard or something. So let me just check. I think I set it up so you can .mp not MP4. Yeah. So what you can do with the script as well is you can filter stuff down by the file extension. So I can just select MP4 and then tab and tab, select those or deselect them as the case may be. Properties, files, you can see I deselected both of the MP4s. So let's go through and reselect them. So select the torrent, get, we can narrow it down to MP4, tab, bang, done. Okay, properties, files, and they're now reselected. So that's just much faster than having to do it through the web, through either the web UI or the the GUI here, because in this section you don't have the ability to deselect files based on the file extension. So if, as I said, you had stuff downloading from archive.org, you'd have like maybe a version in MP4 and an AVI. Using the command line method, what you can do is you can basically say no get and then go AVI, select all the AVIs, and it will just deselect them in here. So that's another tip that you can do. So again, let's have a little recap over Prowlarr. Now we got it all set up. The other thing that you can do is you can test all indexers, so you can actually test whether they're working, if there's any sort of issues with them or anything like that. And again, some of these will actually be blocked for me. I think will these actually open? Okay. I thought that was actually going to provide me a link. Okay, it's actually giving me a link here. Okay, so that is actually working for me. It's not blocked. But as I said, what you can actually do is you can come into these sites. So if I come into, I think you've got to do it. Where do you got to do it? Okay, so click the little wrench edit indexer. That will bring up this page. Again, you can enable it and you can basically change the base URL it searches again. So this will allow you to unblock stuff. You've also got Flare Solver, and what this does is, this is another really big advantage of Prowlarr, is that a lot of torrent sites will be on Cloudflare, and what will happen is you go to the torrent site and it'll say you've got to solve this captcha, select all the cars, now select all the bikes, now select all the roadways or the traffic lights, that kind of stuff. And it's really, really annoying. And what this does is it gets around it. So rather than you going to a torrent site and sitting there clicking, okay, here's all the traffic lights, and I know here's all the pussycats or whatever it is, we can actually use it. And frequently what will happen is when you're actually searching on the torrent site, maybe you search put in 6 or 7 different queries, you'll then get back redirected back to the capture and have to fill it in. So what this allows you to do is bypass all of that and have one web UI that you can actually search multiple sites for. And I showed you this in the previous video when I was using NixOS, but what I wanted to do is actually show you how to get Prowlarr set up in Distrobox using Arch Linux and the AUR, so that you can install stuff from the AUR, and then, as I showed you, you can export the binary or the application from within the container to your host, so that you can run it on your host like a native application. So let's search multiple sites for something. So what's going to be in the public domain? So let's search for Harold Lloyd. Harold, what's it called? The famous Safety Last. Safety Last. Okay. Let me find the actual year just so I can narrow it down. So Safety Last, 1923. Yeah. So 1923. We could search. We've got multiple. We got this selected, so this should select all of them, I think, and then just click search. I think that should search everything. Let me just check. I think that should search. It's been a while since I've used Prowlarr, but I think that should search. Does that search all of them, or was it just searching one thing? Oh no, there we go. Okay, so selecting. Well, but you can. So what you can do is you can either select individual indexes to search for a particular thing. So you might know something's on a particular site. You can just do that, or you can search all of them at once by checking torrent. You can see now torrent's coming up there. Okay, so we got all the listings here. You can see Lime Torrents, BT Search, Internet Archive, all these different places. And it said what you can either do is you can either come across, you can just download here. And in the indexes, you've actually got a preference whether to use magnet links or torrents. And I think by default it uses iTorrent, which is a place where it caches links of torrents. But what you can do is you can just come across, and as you can see, you've got all the information you need. You can sort all these columns, so you can sort by the indexer here. You've got the peers, so you can basically select. So you can see here red 00. Obviously, there's nothing here, and you can see the date. So you can select by that. So you probably want to select by the the peers to show you the latest stuff. You'll see the file size down here for all these things. So we've got like this one down here. So let's go for that. Again, this is definitely in the public domain because it's 100 years old, but it's a great film with great stunts. So let's just do grab release, and I think I've still got that open here, and you can see we've got that here. So let's just come across, go Black Rain, and let's have a look in there. We can go files, so we can see what the actual files are in there. You can see it's now outputting the list of files, so you can see it's got an MP4 and this JPEG. So let's deselect the JPEG. So no get JPEG. So the advantage of this, we've got FZF, so we can actually use fuzzy searching. Just deselect that, bang. It's going to output success. Come back across to the torrent client, properties, files, and you can see it's deselected the JPEG, and that's now downloading. Now the other thing that you can do with this is, I'll stop this. I'll just pause that. So the other thing that you can do with this is the location of Prowlarr does not have to be on the same system as your torrent client. Okay, so your torrent client could be a remote torrent client somewhere else, you know, a seed box, or you know, at your house. So you know, you could set this up so that the torrent client that it's actually using is a remote torrent client, so you can search all this stuff and then send the links to a remote, you know, client, either another machine remotely over the internet, or you know, your dedicated torrent box on your local network. But this is a really great way of being able to search multiple sites at once without having to actually go to them. So, Harold Lloyd, I think I've spelt it wrong. So, Harold Lloyd. Oh, it's actually coming out. I did spell it right. It's just wasn't capitalized, so it looks incorrect. The third genius, yeah. That's what he was known as. So, yeah, so I want that. I don't want the two. Why is it selecting two copies? Oh, that's a bit weird. I don't know why it's selecting two there. Okay. It's a bit odd why it's selecting two, but grab releases. So I can, you know, select multiple things, grab releases, come across, and you can see they're already there. I'll just pause both of those. But it's a much nicer way of actually being able to go through and search multiple sites. The other issue that I've noticed with torrent sites recently is if you're using a VPN to go to different torrent sites, what I've found in Firefox is that you'll get a an error. You'll get a, you know, you want to proceed, there's an error with this site. This certificate is not valid on this domain. But then if you go to a different VPN out point, like suppose you go to Canada and then you go to the US, or you go to another state in the US, it will work. So that what I found is that for some reason, the particular torrent sites are throwing an error in both Firefox and Chrome, where the certificate is not valid on domains for that country or something like that, and then you can't then access the torrent site, which is really annoying. So it's almost like some of the browsers are locking things down in such a way that when you try and access torrent sites using a VPN or in a different country, it's flagging the certificates as not valid for particular domains being used on that site. So this will actually also help with that issue. But really, this has got everything you need. You know, it's going to give you a list of all the stuff. You can actually click any of these links. So let me see. Here we go, bit search. So you actually got links to all the pages. So you can come across onto the page. You can, you know, see more information about it. So you've got the links to all the pages. It's giving you all the information, the age, you know, the file size, how many downloads, how many seeds and peers, the categories. You can sort by all this. So you've got like sort features here, sort age protocol, stuff like that. And that's the same as clicking on the titles up here. You can filter stuff, so you can custom filters. So you can actually create a filter to filter all this stuff down. And again, that's not something you've got generally. You know, you have different ways of filtering stuff on different torrent sites, but this gives you a unified way of searching for stuff. So rather than having 12 tabs open and, like, you know, searching for the same thing across 12 tabs on 12 different sites and then having to filter stuff down, just do it in one thing. What other options have we got here? So you can also show the actual columns, files. So we can actually show files. So what happens if we do that? So files. Okay, that's not doing anything. Okay, so maybe that's why it's not selected. But you can then all move these up and down as well. So you can move the columns up and down to actually reorder these. So, for example, if you're working with torrents all the time, you might not need the protocol up here. So let's just deselect that. Where's the protocol? So we'll deselect the protocol because we know it's a torrent. We've got the age. We might want to reorder some of these columns. So, for example, the titles first, or let's do that. I think that would make more sense to me. So move the title above the age. Close that. So when we got the title, we've got the age, the indexer, the size, the grabs, the peers, the categories. Again, all you got to do is come through and clear that, and then you want to do another search. Put something in here. So what else could we search for? That's the most dangerous game. The most dangerous game. Classic. And so this is a this game. This was in 1920s. I hate flipping. Yeah, here it is. Most dangerous game, 1924. IMDb. 1932. That's it. Basically, it's a story about a count who causes yachts to be stranded on his island, and then he hunts the people. And interestingly, I think one of the quotes from the film is the most dangerous game is man, or something or other. Was actually used by some serial killers. But as you can see here, we've got this. We can narrow it down to 32. Okay, you see here we've got Internet Archive. So we can see that's got a lot of grabs, so we just select that, grab release, cross. It's downloading. And again, this is all running in a container. So as you can see here, what's happening is because I'm running this on the command line, every time you could if you didn't want this, you could run it with no hup or an ampersand, Prowlarr ampersand to run it in the background, that sort of thing. But I don't have an issue with it like this. And again, we just run Prowlarr on the command line. What happens is it starts up the container if it's not started, and then runs Prowlarr. All we do is open the web UI, which is 127.0.0.196.96. Again, the first time you do it, set up the settings to be the general settings to be authentication login form. Okay, and put in your username and password. You can see here we're getting an error here. Index of disabled. So that is that a blocked site? No. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I'm not sure why we're getting an error, but that's another nice thing. It's going to show you if there's an issue connecting to the site. If there's any issues with the indexes not working, you can see them in this overview and dashboard page. And then what you can do is you can come in and you can come across to the wrench. You can actually come in and change the base URL. And what you'll see is you have these options here: download link magnet or a download link fallback. So you can either set it to use magnet links or torrent links. And let me just come across to this one. And if we look at this one here, you can see how this indexer settings page is different depending on the torrent site. As you can see here, this one's by default got download links, itorrent.org or magnet. If I test this one, I think, will it work? Yeah, okay, so that's working and saved. So you'll have a list of all the sites. So rather than, you know, having a list of loads of torrent sites bookmarked and then going to each one individually, you've got a dashboard of all the torrent sites. You can change the base URLs to actually unblock them all. It's going to give you error reporting on it if it can connect to the torrent site. So you'll know if it's down, for example, or it's recently been blocked and you need to do something else. But generally speaking, you should, your torrenting stuff, obviously legal. You want to use a VPN anyway. So a lot of some of these indexers, if I try and add them, might not work because they'd be sort of blocked. So again, first of all, torrent. And again, you can set like private, semi-private. So you can do private and semi-private. So all that show is Demonoid, probably long gone, but you can see here it's going to show you like private, semi-private. I'm just going to select public, and you can go through all of these, and there's loads of different stuff. And it will also, you can see you've got like anime, you got Russian stuff. You got Japanese stuff, TV stuff. Some of these won't sort of work. So, like ISO Hunt 2, if I test this, I know that fails. So, is that just because it's down or because it's blocked? So, let's try going through. So, this it may just be that, you know, this is it may be that the indexers are out of date. So that's another issue that may be. I don't see RBG listed here, which is now defunct. But you can see here we've got Lime torrents. You got a lot of Japanese stuff here. You can see, and also not safe for work sort of stuff. I think Torrent Galaxy is now down or something. So if I come across Torrent Galaxy and I test this, even with a VPN, I think it's down, not working or something, or the certificates aren't working or something or other. So Torrent Galaxy TO MX, part of MX. Where's that gone? I think you can, because these are taking a long time to actually connect, I think it's just down completely. So that's another good advantage. So you'll also find a lot of other sort of torrent sites that you didn't know about. So let's test this one. Okay, so that's working torrents to you. So once you've tested them and it's working, you do that, and then you can come through and actually configure them. So that will open it in the website. Here's like RSS feeds. Oh, so it seems like you actually get an RSS feed for the torrent site. So because Prowlarr actually works with a combination of okay, let me just show you this. Okay, so I'll get onto that in a second, but click the little wrench icon, and that's how you can configure the indexer's settings, basically. So you can see this one doesn't have as many options as the others. It doesn't have any options to use magnet links or torrent links as a fallback. But Prowlarr basically works with a suite of applications. So what you have is you've got Prowlarr, which is sort of like an indexer, and then it works with all these applications here. So you have Lidarr for music, Radarr for movies, Readarr for books, Sonarr for TV, and Whisparr for adult movies. No idea what that is. So this basically works with all these applications. These can be, I think, used standalone, but it's a bit like Sickbeard. If you ever use like Sickbeard for Usenet, that kind of thing, and Couch Potato and all those kind of things. These are a suite of applications that all can work either individually or in combination. So you can set these up to basically search for particular TV shows or movies coming out, and they then hand stuff off to Prowlarr, I think, or I think that's the way they work. These search for individual things, like search for let's have a look. Sonarr is a PVR for Usenet and BitTorrent clients. It can monitor multiple RSS feeds for new episodes of your favorite shows and will grab, sort, and rename them. It can also be used to configure to automatically upgrade the quality of files or automatically when a better quality one is available. So suppose you have obviously stuff in the public domain, like some old, 50s TV show or something, but you've got them in really crappy format. What you can do is you can use this application to go and find better quality versions of your TV series. So you can either use it to monitor RSS feeds for new episodes, or it can be used to actually upgrade your existing episodes or go out and find better quality version. Maybe they've all been upscaled to 4K or something. You could, instead of 320, 240, it will go down and download everything. So that's Sonarr. And then you've got Lidarr for music. It's a collection manager for users, Usenet and BitTorrent. Monitors RSS feeds, same kind of deal. Sonarr, and you've got Radarr for movies. So the way that these all work, I won't mention the last one, is they're applications that will sort of monitor the RSS feeds or Usenet messages for certain criteria of films or music or TV or whatever, and then I think they hand them off to Prowlarr, and Prowlarr then either uses Usenet or BitTorrent to actually download the contents of the RSS feed using the client that you specified, whether it's transmission or any of the other supported download clients. So download clients. So again, for the download clients, it's divided into two sections: Usenet and torrents. You got Usenet. You got download station, which is Synology NAS. You got NZB Gab, SabNZ. So I've used both SabNZ, and that's brilliant. That's really good. And then for torrents, these are all the torrent clients that you can use. You've got Aria2, Deluge, again, download station. So you can actually set this up to use download station on your NAS. So again, using your NAS to download stuff. So you can set up Prowlarr on your laptop and send all the torrents or whatever across to your Synology NAS using download station and download it. You can use qBittorrent, rTorrent, transmission, which we're using, uTorrent, which is commercial and you shouldn't use, Views, which is really bloated, and Java. Again, so I wouldn't recommend those two. But basically, all these applications will work with Prowlarr, which will then do the sending off of those files to whatever download client you've specified. So Prowlarr works with a suite of applications down here, and you can see here we've got servar.com. So I'll put links to all this under the video. But really, I think that suite of applications is really great. So I might actually have a look at setting up a few of these to actually, help download stuff. Obviously only legal stuff. But I think we're going to have a look and see if any of this stuff is in the Arch user repository. So let's come across Distrobox, enter. Are we running? Which one are we running? Am I running Arch 2? Let me just check what's running. Hang on, Distrobox list. So yeah, you can see here this one's Arch 2 is running. So I could do Distrobox, enter name Arch 2. You can see I'm now in Arch Linux, so I could say I haven't really used Yay, but I think it's something like Yay Lidarr. So let's have a look for Sonarr, Sonarr. Okay, so basically this is Yay here, and this is okay, so we've got Sonarr Devel and Sonarr. So it looks like the first result is Sonarr. So I'll just Control C that. Let's check if we've got all these Lidarr. So what we can do is we can use this Arch Linux container and actually install that whole suite of applications. So let's check Radarr. Radarr. Yeah. Okay, Radarr is there. Sorry. Lidarr. And so they're all named the same. Got Lidarr there. Yeah, we've got Lidarr, Readarr, Sonarr. Readarr. Yeah. Readarr Devel, Readarr Nightly. I spelled it properly, and just check the last one as well. That may not be okay. Yeah, that one's there as well. So all these applications listed here are available on the Arch AUR and can be installed using Yay and then integrated as a suite of applications together with Prowlarr, and all run from. You can then export all the binaries from these. You can actually, as I showed you, you can export the binary so that you can run it on the host. And then these are all web applications. Basically, they're all the same as Prowlarr. They all are web-based UIs, and then you can run all those applications from the container. Now, one other really useful thing I want to show you is we've got the link to Distrobox, but there was also a good article on Fedora magazine. And some of the things listed down here, if I just come through Distrobox command. So there is a way you can export an application. So you can either export export an app that you've installed, a GUI app, but you can also you're supposed to be able to export a systemd service, but I couldn't get that to work. You can to exit Distrobox, you can just click, type exit from the terminal. But what you can also do is some neat stuff. You can actually execute a command directly into Distrobox container. So you can run like Distrobox, enter the name and dash dash, and then a command to actually execute. So you can actually update a container. I think there's actually also a command that will update all the containers at once, even though they're all using different package managers. The other thing that you can do is you can actually clone a container. So you can, for example, suppose you wanted to upgrade all the applications, but weren't sure if anything was going to break. You could clone the container and then, do an upgrade. And if it doesn't work, you've still got, a clone of it. The other thing that you can do is you can use Podman to actually save the image, the container, to an image with Podman. So if I sort of come across down this article, down the bottom, play around in container. So down the bottom down here, you can install old stuff. What was it? Backup and restore. So this is the section you can basically use Podman to export the container into a tar.gz file, and then you can move that tar.gz file to another computer and then use Podman to import that container on the other system. So you'll have, suppose you got everything set up, all those applications set up, but your mate wants it set up or something. You can just save it all as, you can save the things as tar.gz file, put in another machine, import them, and you'll have the same suite of applications all set up. And also it means you can have them sort of backed up. So that's another really nice feature, I think. And if you go to YouTube, there's a talk by the guy who set this up, youtube.com. If you search for Distrobox, Distrobox, there's a talk. Yeah, this one here, Distrobox, running the app from any distro.
Hello.
So if you have a look at, if you ever want to learn a bit more about it, this is from the Linux Foundation, and he'll talk you through some of the actual features. But if you search for Distrobox, you'll actually find it's quite a popular flavour of the month sort of thing at the moment. There's also another one, got Distrobox Arch. What's the guy's name? This one? No, yeah. This old dude. Yeah, this guy. Jack Pfeffer. Gives a little talk on actually how to set up Distrobox to access the AUR from Linux Mint. So this is where I got some of the tips from actually setting up Yay and some of the little tweaks you needed to do, setting the locale and stuff. It's been a few years since I've used Arch, so I'll put a link to this under the video as well. It's some useful stuff there. One thing that I did notice was I'm in the container here is running, so sudo systemctl status. The system has not been booted with systemd as an init system. PID can't operate, failed to connect to bus, host is down. So that's one really weird thing, and I don't know if it's something I've done or not done, is that even though you can check, there's a way to check if systemd is running, is actually installed and set as the init system. I couldn't get systemd working because there's a way supposedly to export systemd services from the container to the host. So what you can do is actually run a systemd service on the host that is actually run inside the container, but I couldn't get that to work because of this sort of error message. So that's just one thing I wanted to also point out. And there is two. You can either run. There's some Distrobox commands you can run on the host, but then there are some that have to be run inside the container. So if I'm in the container here, if I run Distrobox, what you'll see here is the two commands that I've got: a Distrobox export and Distrobox host execute. So Distrobox export -h. So if you run Distrobox export inside the container, what you'll see is you can actually export either an application or a bin, a binary from the container to the host, and then you can either run that. It will create either for an application, it will create a desktop file, sort of kind of like a desktop file that will show up in your application launcher, or you can export a binary and specify a path to export that binary. So there was some mention in that Fedora article that you can export systemd services, but that's not listed here. And again, that may be something I've done or not done, or I don't know. But this is how you can export the binaries. So you put in the path and then the export path, and that is basically yeah, export. So this is how you export the binary. So this is how we exported the Prowlarr binary from the container to local bin on our host system. So Distrobox -export --bin, and this is the path to Prowlarr in the container. Then we do --export path //.local bin, and then finally we added local.bin to our ZSH file, which means I can basically run Prowlarr, as you can see, and that is local bin Prowlarr, and this is what the export looks like. So not actually a binary. What it is a script that is executing Distrobox, a named Distrobox container, and then a specific command. So you can see here --Prowlarr, and then this means any argument, any number of arguments. Normally you have $1, 2, 3, 4 for an argument, but the $@ means any number. So this is basically what happens when you export the binary. It exports a shell script with the path to the binary in the container, so that you can actually just run it. So you can use this to do stuff like install FFmpeg or something. You could build anything in the container and export it to your host, and then run it. So that's Prowlarr. That's how you get it set up. That's how you get it integrated with your torrent client. That's how you can also go through and install. Once you've got Yay set up, you can install all these applications, these suite of applications, monitor RSS feed for music, movies, books, TV, and other stuff. Set them up with Prowlarr, and then set your Prowlarr up with whatever download programs you want to use for torrents or usenet. And as I said, you can save the image. So once you've got all this set up, you can follow those tips to actually save the container as a tar.gz file. So you've already got a copy. You can clone it so that you can test an upgrade and a cloned version, which means that you can always go back. So yeah, it's pretty great, and it just means that you can use Arch Linux and the AUR to install anything on your system that is not in your normal repositories. So that's all for now, and I'll put links to all this under the video.